Finally, we're here. The end of 2020, and this is my top 50 of the year, basically. And I'm going to include albums, mixtapes, and a couple bootlegs that came out during this year. So yeah, let's get right into it because this is a long one. At 50, we got another great album from Against All Logic, aka Nicholas Jar, 2017 to 2019. The production and the mixing almost feels dirty in a way, and that really does fit with the album cover looking like a stock photo. At 49, we have Illuminati Hotties with Free IH. This is not the one you've been waiting for. There's something about their vocals and the contrast it has with their instrumentals that make it work so well for me, and it certainly works here. 48, we have Envy, the Fallen Crimson. I was very high on this album earlier in the year, and obviously shit changed. I still love a lot of the beautiful guitar work, and the screamo vocals work really nicely behind them. And yeah, I highly recommend this if you're looking to get into Japanese screamo. 47, Kelly Lee Owens in a Song. Kelly Lee Owens is an exciting house artist for me because of the way she can maneuver through multiple passages in one song, all the while making some of the most impactful bass drops of the year. Songs like Melt and On are fantastic for this. At 46, we have Open Mike Eagle's Anime, Trauma and Divorce. Open Mike Eagle has long been one of my favourite voices in the hip hop underground, and albums like Dark Humor and Brick Body Kid Still Daydream, are among my favourite hip hop albums ever, and he doesn't miss with this one either. Funny, relatable, and chilled out beats. What more could you ask for? 45, we have Earth Eater, Phoenix Flames I Drew Upon My Skin. This album has some of the most beautiful moments of the year, whether it be through slow, drony build-ups or through acoustic passages like on the tracks Metallic Taste of Patience and Below the Clavicle. Interesting titles, I know. This album is just such a stunning display of avant folk, and you would be remiss to miss it. At 44, Ka, Descendants of Cain. Ka has grown to become one of my favourite rappers over the years because of his insane consistency, and this new album isn't exempt from it. While it's not as great as his other albums, the highs on this still reach the highest of his career. And I just love the production choice being dark and desolate mixed with his monotone and cold delivery. At 43, Ortega Signal. Ortega is probably up there with Aphex Twin in terms of consistency. While I've only heard a handful of their early stuff, this is probably the most out there and weird album I've heard from them, but that may change as I dive deeper into their discography. And the way these instrumentals warp provides quite a bizarre listen, for me at least, and one of the most unique of the year. 42, we have Opium by Mixed Matches. Opium sees Mixed Matches improve on all fronts when compared to late. I thought that they had relied too heavily on bass to carry their songs, and on this the main attraction is their melancholic and soothing voices, which I see a lot of potential in. At 41, the legendary Plunderphonics group Avalanches return with their latest album, We Will Always Love You. The instrumentals are fantastic, and I still love some of the features on this, like Blood Orange and Pink Sifu, who actually kill their features. At number 40, we have 21 Savage and Metro Boomin with Savage Mode 2. The combination of 21 Savage's dark and almost gruesome lyrics and Metro Boomin's incredible talent of flipping samples into trap beats makes for one of the most interesting trap releases of the year. And all of this ruined by Drake calling himself the Slow Stroke King. I mean, why'd you have to do that, man? At 39, we have Jessie Ware, What's Your Pleasure? An extremely funky and poppy album that'll leave you wanting to get on the dance floor if it weren't for your crippling social anxiety. Nevertheless, this album is very, very catchy, and I highly recommend it to those who are fans of this dance pop movement happening in pop. 38, Blue in Exile with Miles. One of the most acclaimed duos in hip-hop returned with some great material for a sunny day. Genuinely, though, this album features some fantastic rapping from Blue, and I mean, some of the one-liners on this are incredible. I highly recommend this if you're into the hippity-hoppity-rappity raps, but without the corny. At 37, we have Set His Ass by Nicholas Jar, and it's yet another stunning display of electronic music by one of the most consistent artists of this era. While not as impressive as his next release, this one still manages to captivate you with its mysterious and ominous atmosphere. At 36, we have Gulch, Impenetrable Cerebral Forces. Yes, this album is as gross as the band's name. If you didn't know, I'm a huge fan of metalcore and grindcore, and I absolutely love bands like Nails and Pig Destroyer, and this album fucking rips. 15 minutes of just pure, hungry and disgusting metalcore. While I do find that this can come off as one note, I think the length of this album plays into that really well. At number 35, we have Yabujin's Early Works bootleg. Yabujin has grown to become one of the most exciting underground cloud rap artists, and this is probably my favourite of his, even though it's a bootleg. The ethereal feel of this album mixed with the Memphis rap sampling provides a really surreal experience. At 34, we have Ultimate Success Today by Proto Martyr. While this can get a bit sleepy at some points, it no doubt has special songs in it, including the run from the Forest to Michigan Hammers, where they vary in styles but remain to be some of their best material. Number 33, we have Ace Tantina with Temple of Null. The wobbly and frantic nature of this album make for an interesting blend of footwork and vaporwave. The sampling is also used very interestingly, as is common with vaporwave, to create an atmosphere, but to also create quick and frantic rhythms. Also, this cover art is probably the best of the year. At number 32, we have I Disagree by Poppy. Poppy's blend of metal and pop work in tandem to create a distinctive sound that I personally haven't heard before. Each track can go from somber and classic Poppy to really heavy and loud guitars and even dark lyricism. At 31, we have No Moon by Black Wing. Dan Barrett returns under the alias of Black Wind to present us with yet another great and depressive album. And it's just another great display of why Dan Barrett is still one of the best and most consistent artists of our time. Tracks like Ominous 80, Is This Real Life, Jesus Christ and Vulnerable show how his sound is still evolving by incorporating more industrial elements to his songs. At number 30, we have Dricked Out Mountains by Moksha Drip. Moksha Drip's debut mixtape provides an insight into this new genre that's beginning to bubble up in the underground hip-hop scene called Tread. What I love about this album is just how crushed this sounds and the parallels to Nightcore it has. Songs like Coming Out Drixo and Dreamscape Infinity are unbelievably ethereal, and I really do recommend checking this tape out if you're interested in this emerging subgenre. Number 29, we have Laura Marling with Song for Our Daughter. While this album doesn't exactly reinvent the wheel in terms of folk music, this is still a great display of it. This album is filled with calming, somber, and really well-composed songs with quite sad lyricism, and her voice is really, really beautiful with it. At 28, we have Set My Heart on Fire Immediately by Perfume Genius. God, this album is beautiful. The production is so lush from front to back and almost falls into shoegaze on songs like Describe and Some Dream. Also, the vocals on Jason are genuinely magnificent. Some of the most stunning and beautiful songs of the year appear in this album, and I wouldn't miss it for the world. At 27, we have Disease with Loving Relationship. The vibes on this album are insane. I don't even know how to describe it really. While I can see a lot of vaporwave elements in this, I can't really say that it's fully vaporwave, but more of an ambient album. Everything about this is a nice vibe. It's also nice and short, which is perfect for an album like this. At 26, we have Kick Eye by Arca. This album, in my opinion, was a step in the right direction for Arca. I wasn't a big fan of their self-titled album because of how slow it is, but with this, it's more straightforward and to the point, and more of a satisfying listen for me. The production is fantastic all over this, with a nice spacey vibe to it, especially on Afterwards, where there's a build-up, but it's backed by Bjork's fantastic voice over the spaced-out production, and when the climax comes, Arca is there to finish it off. At 25, we have Carly Rae Jepsen's Dedicated Side B. It's just fun, isn't it? Another fantastic side B to one of her albums that matches its quality. I feel that this is her most upbeat album since probably Kiss. The production is just as poppy and fun as they usually are, and her vocals are as beautiful and as playful as it always has been. And her songwriting, as always, is extremely catchy, with songs like Window, Fake Mona Lisa, and Now I Don't Hate California After All being stuck in my head after every listen. And it's simply another fantastic addition to an incredible discography. At 24, we have Odraza with Rzeczkom, if that's how you say it. I discovered this album around mid-year, and I listened to it every day for at least a week straight. I think that what I love most about this album is the extreme and guttural vocals presented on it. I mean, the title track alone will leave you shaking and wondering what the hell just happened. I mean, the aggression in their voice is something to marvel at. While the instrumentals aren't really unique, they stick to tradition extremely well, with some of the tracks, including the title track, which I love, go through multiple different passages within the runtime, while staying as frantic as it was. What I will say is I first listened to it because of the cover, and I kept listening to it because of the music. At 23, we have My Agenda by Dorian Electra. Dorian Electra's My Agenda, while much shorter than Flamboyant, provides us with a much improved sound that further cements the genre of hyperpop. Dorian goes for the more extreme production akin to groups like 100 gecs, where there is a lot of dubstep inspiration with songs like F the World and Ram It Down showing these inspirations. Even with these fast-paced tracks, songs like My Agenda and Give Great Thanks are a lot more mellow relative to the rest of the track list. At number 22, we have Rap Ferreira with Purple Moonlight Pages. This wave of abstract hip-hop is genuinely one of the most exciting underground movements in a while, and Milo, aka Rap Ferreira, has been at the forefront of it for a long time. His take on jazz rap is really unique, leaning a lot more on the jazz elements, using the bass instrument and even horns and non-cypher, and leaving Hell to put more of an emphasis on jazz. His almost spoken word style of rapping matches really nicely with the jazz instrumentals because it's so laid back. And although a movement like abstract hip hop or jazz rap can sometimes blend in with each other, Milo always manages to move out of the sameness with songs like You Dig and Laundry, where the instrumental gaps make for more of an impactful experience. And of course, his lyricism is up there with some of the best. That Pharoah Sanders reference on Master Plan, I like that. At 21, we have Oransi Pazuzu with Mestering Kinsey. Oransi Pazuzu blessed us this year with some of the most stunning and beautiful black metal of the year, using slow build-ups and huge drops to create this apocalyptic feeling that few metal albums succeed at doing. The compositions of these tracks are quite simply brilliant. The use of the slow build-ups is a massive factor as to why this album is as so highly praised. I think that the first two tracks encapsulate this perfectly, with both using calm and paranoid psychedelic sounds to create this build-up, and then the dopamine rush that the drop gives you is otherworldly. The use of psychedelia on this is absolutely incredible, by the way, especially when incorporated throughout the latter sections, like on the second and fourth tracks, which I can't pronounce. At 20, we have Yves Tumor with Heaven to a Tortured Mind. What I love most about this album is the incredible production. The highest highs are when the production is bombastic and loud, and coupled with his unorthodox and psychedelic vocals make for such a unique listen. This is especially heard on Gospel for a New Century, where the horns blare out of the speaker and mixed with Yves Tumor's passionate vocals makes for an incredibly surreal experience. This album is probably a perfect reason as to why I prefer conventionally average or bad vocals to conventionally good vocals. You just don't feel that same passion. At 19, we have Visions of Bodies Being Burned by Clipping. These guys again show why they are one of the most exciting and boundary-breaking hip-hop groups of the past decade with this album. The instrumentals remain as industrial as they've always been, but now I feel there are more tracks where the instrumentation is quite sparse, giving Daveed Diggs a chance to let his rapping ability show, and boy did he show it. His flow is immaculate and legitimately one of the best I've ever heard. His flow is impeccable on tracks like Something Underneath and Body for the Pile, where the instrumentals are again more sparse and spacey. Not only this, but his vocals match perfectly, as it's very confident and it's got this bravado surrounding it that again matches well with the psychopathic lyrics. At 18, we have Lianne La Havas with a self-titled album, and this is genuinely one of the most beautiful and soulful albums of the year. Also, one of my favourite album covers of the year because it's just beautiful. That's besides the point though, because the music, her production is so lush and warm and welcoming, with the bass lines being my favourite parts of them. The lush instrumentals mixed with the smooth and soothing vocals make for an album that can both make you cry and smile. And Bittersweet is one of my absolute favourite songs of the year, and also that Radiohead cover is brilliant. 17, Phoebe Bridgers, Punisher. This has been quite the comfort album over the course of the pandemic, and boy is it great. Her grandiose yet low-key production perfectly meshes with her lonesome and wanting vocals, especially on songs like Kyoto, ICU, and the final track, I Know the End. And speaking of Kyoto, man, I don't think I'll ever get over that song. The way she talks about her imposter syndrome when she goes somewhere she always wanted to go her whole life, and it really makes her seem grounded, and I like that a lot about her. Her lyrics all over this album are poetic as fuck too, with her double entendres and turn of phrases making you rewind to understand it. At 16, we have Natalia Lafourcade with Un Canto por Mexico, Volume 1. And what a beautiful celebration of culture. I mean, my goodness. I don't think you'll find a happier album this year. The chemistry Natalia has with the people she collaborates with is exceptional, and songs like Mexicana, Hermosa, and Hasta la Raíz demonstrate this, being very celebratory. But not only does she kill it with others, but her solo stuff is just fantastic too. Songs like Veracruz and Cucurucuru Paloma strike a more somber tone, putting more of a focus on Natalia's beautiful vocals, whereas songs like Una Vida and Mi Religión are more celebratory like a collabs, but better in my opinion. Just a beautiful experience from front to back. At 15, we have Quelle Chris and Chris Keys with Innocent Country 2. Piano is a nice instrument, isn't it? I remember this album coming out like it was yesterday, and for about a week straight I only listened to this because it's fantastic. The instrumentals are really nice and mellow, which fits the aesthetic of Quelle Chris with his nasally and laid-back delivery. The production also feels really full, if you know what I mean. Like, it feels like they added as much as they could to every beat, and it makes the album feel that much more rich and full of life. Especially on Graphic Bleeds Out, and when that flute comes in, absolute euphoria. And also the instrumental changes on Grease from the Elbow is some of the most smoothest changes I've ever heard in a hip-hop song. There are so many incredible songs on this, man, like Sacred Safe, Bottle Black Power by The Business, Grease from the Elbow, Graphic Bleeds Out, and Mirage. My god, Mirage. 14. These were really close, by the way, 14 and 15. We have Arm & Hammer with Shrines. Billy Woods and Elucid are genuinely one of my favourite hip-hop duos of all time, and the production choices are dark and abstract, and it fits perfectly with the coded lyricism that both rappers use. And King Tubby, I don't think I've heard a better rap song this year. From the dark and desolate instrumental to the incredible verses from Woods and Elucid, it blows me away every time. Also, the amount of quotables on this album is actually impressive. Your mind the greatest weapon, but your heart the biggest target. I got ideals and dreams that don't work in practice. I got time machines and that don't go backwards. Some things you just can't leave in the past. They follow you home like skinny dogs separated from the pack. I think I've made my point. 13, we have Rina Sawayama with Sawayama. I've been anticipating a Rina album ever since hearing her first project, Rina, with her modernization of past pop trends, and her album elevates this to another level in my opinion. She goes a step further in reviving early 2000s pop music, similar to that of Britney Spears, to fit today's pop landscape. Songs like Excess, Comme des Garçons, and Bad Friends go down this road, and with Excess incorporating metal elements. And these metal elements would also show up in songs like STFU, which is an absolute banger. She goes through a range of styles throughout the whole project, with Paradise and sounding like a TV show intro, and Dynasty and Chosen Family being more grandiose in production. At 12, we have Paysage Tehillah with I'm Wild. This is probably the most acclaimed metal album of the year, and it's not hard to see why. While it does stick to its traditional atmospheric black metal roots, they do it so well that it's not really a problem. The distant and harsh guitar work mixed with the screeching vocals create a cold and desolate atmosphere that will leave you with chills running down your spine. Not only this, but the drum work is incredible, firing at a rapid pace and sounding almost plastic. The interludes also set the tone for this wintry and cold album, with most of it sounding like field recordings of someone walking through a dark and windy forest. These moments of quiet are often backed with soaring guitars or silent ambient synth lines. This is such a fantastic album that will hit you with everything it's got on every single track, and it really never lets up, and I highly recommend it. At 11, Boris with Merzbow return with RIP 2020. I'm assuming that means. They've done it again. They've really done it again. While I still think that Rock Dream is better than this, it's still a fantastic listen. The way both acts merge their sounds together in such a seamless and effortless way, just got that, is an incredible feat. Merzbow's patented wild distortion and organised chaos mixed with Boris's ability to create a larger-than-life atmosphere through head-rattling guitar riffs and booming drums make for one of the most interesting and best listens I've had this year. Sometimes Merzbow can overpower some songs, which is to be expected from a harsh noise artist, but it works to the benefit as the muffled singing on songs like Love and Absolute Go creates a feeling of almost claustrophobia, which is rare nowadays. We're at the top 10 finally, and our first album in the top 10 is this one, Dua Lipa's Future Nostalgia. I was very pleasantly surprised when I first heard this album. Almost every song on this album is absolute gold. The instrumentals are very 80s inspired, which seems to be the direction mainstream pop is taking, and I'm very happy about that. Her writing is simple as much of pop is, but it works in the way that it works for artists like Carly Rae Jepsen, where it doesn't matter because she makes it all so unbelievably fun. After the first time listening to it, I caught myself multiple times either humming or singing parts of songs. Don't Start Now and The Run from Levitating to Break My Heart are some of the catchiest songs I've ever heard. The only downfall to this album are the last two songs being, to put it quite simply, average. But other than that, this album is fantastic and a huge step in the right direction for her. At number 9, we have Dream Crusher with Panopticon. This may be the most underrated mixtape to come out of this year. Just non-stop and unrelenting noise. While a lot of noise albums can come off as just randomly placed noise and doing it for the sake of it, this comes off as very calculated. There are actually some hints of melody and rhythm within the noise. This is basically a rework of a lot of different songs from artists ranging from Dean Blunt to Genesis, but like made to burst your eardrums. It's weird, but this album is kind of catchy. I don't know how to explain it, but it is. At number 8, we have Nicholas Jar with Tell Us. It's hard to put into words what this album actually is. A term that I've seen a couple of times to describe this album is like liquid metal, if that makes any sense. Like, it sounds so metallic and industrial, but it's also got a fluidity to it. The tribal elements of this album absolutely pop out, especially on the first track, Telehora, where the atmosphere feeds into the tribal drums perfectly to create this otherworldly feeling. And again, I'm not great at talking about music like ambient or drone, but the feeling that this album gives me is something I've rarely felt during a record. The album can go from a glitchy soundscape with a larger-than-life atmosphere to ambient and ethereal in a blink of an eye. The way these tracks are structured are something to be marveled at. The way these tracks transition from phase to phase is something that Nicholas Jar seems to have almost perfected. At number 7, we have 333 by Blade. With this album, Blade delves deeper into the direction of ambient pop, and it's just as fantastic as his other works. Over the years, Blade has made many changes to his sound, going from full-blown cloud rap to now with a more somber tone. I mean, right from the start, Wings in Motion is different from anything I've ever heard from him, and the somber acoustic guitar playing mixed with the soft and auto-tuned vocals make for a quite calming experience. The more cloud rap songs on here are also fantastic, with Mean Girls, Innocent of All Things, and Noblest Strive being the absolute highlights of this album. The spacey production is a known Blade formula, but with this it's much more cleaner than his previous tracks on projects like Glue and Ever Since. And his vocals are also much softer and higher than usual, with tracks like Don't Worry, Mean Girls, and Reality Surf, where it almost has a childlike innocence to it. This is probably the most accessible Blade album, and I'm really glad he didn't sacrifice quality to achieve this accessibility. At number 6, we have Pink Siifu's Negro. This was my introduction to Pink Siifu, and it's bloody aggressive. It's basically 37 minutes of pure energy and noise that just hits the sweet spot of being over the top but not falling. The production is insanely noisy and so industrial, and Siifu matches this energy with his vocals being just as aggressive, shown on songs like S&D and FK. But it can become relatively quieter with tracks like We Need More Color and Nation Time, while still quite industrial, has a more laid back and more inspired by the current underground hip-hop acts like Mike and Sauce Malone. This album is much more than its production though, as the lyrics are quite topical for the times, talking pretty straightforwardly about his, let's say, distaste for cops, which I share. A lot of his lyrics are about Siifu wanting revenge on the clear misbalance of black and white people incarcerated, particularly on Run Pig Run, where he talks about wanting to shoot back when they shoot. Yeah, it's an intense listen, but it's absolutely worth your time if industrial and noisy hip-hop is your cup of tea. At number 5, Playboi Carti returns with Whole Lotta Red. Playboi Carti furthers the sound of trap music with his long-awaited second album, Whole Lotta Red. Definitely his most polarizing and experimental project yet, and it's fantastic. This album is filled with banger after banger, with the bass being the most prominent it's ever been on a Cardi album. Songs like Stop Breathing and Metamorphosis really show how successful this is. And speaking of Metamorphosis, Cardi's hums are absolutely brilliant, meshing beautifully with the bass. This album isn't just a one note, however, as songs like Beano and Teen X are much more similar to the Dial It style, where Cardi's baby voice is used brilliantly, and his catchy hook writing are on full display. And speaking of the vocals, they are absolutely brilliant on here. The absolute raw energy exuding from his inflections and his way of matching the energy of the instrumentals make for such an aggressive and hyper experience. This is just such an ethereal and surreal experience that I'm shocked that I even had. And to all the people that wanted Dial It 2, no. I'm so glad that we have an artist like this in the mainstream who's willing to change the sound and experiment with it to fit what they want. And this is clearly what he wanted with this album. And I'm happy about it because I love it. At number 4, we have DJ Sabrina, the Teenage DJ with Charmed. Charmed was my introduction to DJ Sabrina, and boy was it a great one. For an album that's 3 hours long, it certainly doesn't feel like it. I've seen this being compared to the Avalanches, and it's not hard to see why. The production is very sample heavy and has the same upbeat and positive energy of Since I Left You, but some of the songs on this exceed that level. Songs like Charmed and Not Your Fault are incredibly stunning, but Charmed Life is where the album hits its absolute peak with the beautiful soaring synths, and the incredible sampling from DJ Sabrina culminates into one of the best songs of the year. For the whole length of this album's runtime, it never fails to be the center of attention no matter what you're doing. Everything on this album is done to near perfection as expected from DJ Sabrina. At number 3, we have Viper, One Day You'll See Me Again. One Day You'll See Me Again is a compilation or a bootleg collection of work from the early days of an incredibly innovative artist. Viper's known as a meme artist ever since the blow up of his song, You Cowards Don't Even Smoke Crack. And while I did see him as a meme artist and someone who I didn't take seriously, over the past few months, that's changed. I've been going through some of his early works, and it's really groundbreaking. This is basically a compilation made by a fan to show that he's more than a meme and that he's actually a great artist, which he is. The instrumentals are lo-fi, and the use of reverse samplings give off such a calming vibe that's only added onto with his deep and breathy vocals. While I think that basically all of the track list is fantastic, the final song, Hey Maybe One Day I'll See You Again, is genuinely one of the most beautiful hip-hop songs I've ever heard. The reverse sampling, along with his vocals and strong lyricism about wanting a happy ending with this woman, make for such an incredible experience. And also, that hook is just so brilliant, and I highly recommend checking this out if you think that Viper is just a meme artist, because he's so much more than that. At number 2, we have this album, Charli XCX, How I'm Feeling Right Now. Charli XCX's Quarantine album shows us what she can do on an album without features, and she absolutely kills it. While I absolutely love her previous albums, I feel like some of the features would ruin the vibe of the songs, like some of the features on Pop 2, or they would overshadow and stunt her potential. But finally, her potential shone through with this album in what I think is her best work yet. The production is raw as fuck, and as Fantana pointed out, almost Death Grips-esque on Pink Diamond. The rough productions on songs like Pink Diamond and Forever work well to establish the charm of this album, being stuck in quarantine and making music. Quite simple, I know, but it's also kind of unforgettable. Not only is the production incredible, but Charli's vocals fit seamlessly with it. Her confident approach to her vocal performances work incredibly well with the loud and glitchy production choices. I remember throughout the rollout of this album, I was in isolation, stressing over schoolwork. But whenever she would post or announce a song, it would always make my day so much better. And this album is a huge step forward for the progression of this new type of pop that has been bubbling for so many years. And we're here, finally, number 1. And number 1, we have Fetch the Bolt Cutters by Fiona Apple. Fiona Apple's first studio album in 7 years left me absolutely speechless and was all I listened to for a good month. While I don't feel the same need to listen to it, every time I do, it's always an incredibly good time. The DIY style of production gives the album a feeling of sincerity and even empowers some of the subject matter. Speaking of the subject matter, it really gets dark. The track run from Heavy Balloon to For Her is dark as fuck in terms of topics. Heavy Balloon is about depression and how it's like constantly trying to keep a heavy balloon from falling. Cosmonauts is about the impossibility of actually wanting to stay in a relationship with someone forever. And For Her is about rape and how successful men can get away with it, like Brett Kavanaugh. Yeah, it's pretty dark. And it's also my favourite 3-track one of the year. Outside of these songs being absolute perfection, this album is incredible. Every track on this hits as hard as the last and never fails to blow me away. This album is so good that it has one of my all-time favourite moments on For Her, where she starts to deliver in an aggressive way. Good morning, you raped me in the same bed your daughter was born in. It chills every time it comes up. Yeah, I could talk endlessly about how good this album is, but I'll leave it here because I've been recording for a long time. And that's it. Finally, done with this shitty year. It's been a great year for music. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to follow all the socials in the description. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and see ya.